Okay, I think it's good time to start. Welcome everyone. Again, you know what this is. This is Tech Biz. We do this every single Thursday, 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock Nigerian time. And the whole idea is to support businesses, support entrepreneurs on the journey to thriving. And of course, we know that a lot of things have happened to our businesses in the last couple of months, thanks to the external factors. Talk about the VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. I mean, we are going through real volatility because the pandemic itself has brought quite a number of factors from economic issues. We heard about the the negative economic growth in Nigeria, and not just Nigeria, so many other countries are experiencing it. You see the impact on Forex and how that is impacting on retail prices, on the shelves. So indeed, it cannot be more VUCA than it is today. However, we as entrepreneurs, as business people, or even potential entrepreneurs are needing to find how we thrive with all of this, how we adapt. People talk a lot about pivots. Well, yeah, of course, how we pivot, how we adapt, how we now get back to the point of thriving. Will things ever come back to what they were in the past? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But the point is that we want our businesses to transform and be relevant to today. And that's why Eco-Innovation continues to bring Tech Biz on a weekly basis. And we bring you really relevant topics. We've gone through so many topics, and if this is your first time of joining, please go to ecoicenter.com/webinar. You will see all of the past presentations, discussions that we have had, and it's covered the multi-dimensions of your business, from sourcing for funds, how you manage your funds, to even the legal space of intellectual property, data privacy, even going into private equity, venture capital, what it takes to maybe sell your business should you want to. So it's actually taken quite a number of fronts. And I tell you, that is a real library sitting in there that our entrepreneurs can really learn from and tap from as well to adapt your businesses. But a quick one about Eco-Innovation, if you can go to the next slide, please. So Eco-Innovation, for those who have been joining us consistently, you know that this hub is set up to support businesses that leverage two key enablers, which is innovation and technology, in order to help solve problems, solve poverty, whether within the city of Lagos, within Nigeria, or even within the continent. And there are many levers to that. You see it's broad. From learning to acceleration, we help to build businesses, even incubation, from idea to actual commercialization. Another important one, in fact, I dare say that this is the only hub that actually runs civic tech. And civic tech is one that actually is about supporting initiatives that are enabling governments to bring the right services to you, right? So we galvanize the public that you lend your talents to help government deliver their services. The most recent one, I talked about it last week, that we're running is the Lagos Smart Meter, where it is a hackathon that is crowdsourcing for solutions to the metering gap that exists within Lagos. So we're looking for affordable, smart meters that will help the distribution of power. And then more importantly for you as well is capturing your data, your usage, and making sure you pay only for what you use. So bye-bye to estimated billing. Should you want more information, should you need more support from Eco-Innovation, please send an email, info@ecoinnovationhub.com. So let's talk about today's topic. This week, what are we talking about? And you've seen the ad is about branding your tech. In fact, I'm quite appreciative of our speaker today, who is an expert in branding. He's even gone broader to say branding your business, in a broader way. And they say that a brand that captures the mind is going to gain behavior, one level. Another brand that captures your heart is going to gain your commitment. So What Balaji is going to be talking about today is really about creating an innovative and sustainable brand experience, because it's the experience that will bring the commitment. So Balaji, you are welcome. I'm so glad, and we are all appreciative that you commit your time to sharing and learning along with us.
I'd say thank you very much, Dodger. That was I mean, it's great to even hear about the great things that Eco Innovation is doing. Some of those things I really did not know before your speech, but um, I'd say in today's world where we have a lot of people, I call it an occupation revolution. So when we were younger, you went to school, you literally studied law, medicine, engineering. In today's world, you have a lot of people who are developing the jobs that they are passionate about. They are developing the jobs that they know would help the world become a better place. And they're doing it in a way that is putting their own individuality into what they do. And I'd say there's no better time than now. I mean, even though, you know, the world is in a funny place right now with the COVID and the pandemic, but there's no better time than now to be innovative. There's no better time than now to be more sincere about what your business stands for. And there's no better time than now to consider and, you know, think deeply about the problems that you want to solve and how you want to go about solving them. So, I mean, it's a pleasure to be here with everybody. Good evening, everyone. I have titled my presentation, Creating an Innovative and Sustainable Brand Experience. And I say that because I tell people, I know the word branding has been overflogged, overused. Um, I had a dad, he's late now, but I had a dad who never really understood what I was doing. He kept thinking I was a printer. So a brief history, Tito, you can go to the next slide, just to introduce myself and how I came about this whole branding journey. This is me. I literally just put up a screenshot of my LinkedIn profile. I am very active on LinkedIn, so you could just search me up on there. I used to write a lot. Nowadays, I look for the time to do the writings and all of that. But yeah, this is me. Interestingly, I studied geophysics, so nothing that had to do with marketing. I will tell you how I came about that. I literally just looked through all the courses that were being done in school, and I picked the one that was closely related to oil and gas because I wanted to be rich, and I thought that, you know, if I did something that had anything to do with those resources, then it would be, you know, my fast track to becoming a wealthy man. Sometime after school, I started to hear about, I mean, it was the tech age, you know, websites and everything coming through. I started to learn about what brands in the global space were doing, and I literally got interested. I mean, it was the age of Apple and the age of the Facebook and all of that, and to see what young people were doing with those businesses and those ideas, it was a great thing. I just needed to get myself into a space where I could express myself better, and, you know, also bring about some innovation that would help. I tell people it's a lot about humanity at the end of the day. What branding really is how you make your business more human, how you make people more, how you make people feel like they can actually relate to what your cause is, aside from solving a problem for them. And that's really what it has been for me. Um, Over the last, I'd say, 9, 10 years, I have worked with, I mean, I've gone across the entire value chain of the marketing communications industry. So I've worked with advertising agencies, I've created adverts, I have moved on to working on the corporate side, I've worked with financial services, worked with investment banking, worked with legal services. So for me, it's always about pushing the frontiers, like always pushing the boundaries of what branding is and what people understand it to be. And that's me. That's literally where I found myself. Today, I do a lot of work. Most recently, I started off I'd say a non-profit with a couple of my friends and partners, literally just trying to create a more equal world for both genders. So I don't like to think about it in one way, even though there's a lot of catching up to do with regards to gender equality in Nigeria. But that's something I'm very passionate about because I have sisters. I hope to have a daughter someday, and and they literally hope that they can, live in a balanced world and compete based on ideas and not have to be scared of their gender limiting them in any way. So that's a brief history about me. It's great to be here to talk to you. If you have any questions, I'm going to go through the presentation, but if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. And if you're trying to get my attention one way, you could drop them in the chat as well, and then I'll try and peep in there from time to time. So let's go to the next slide. Let's go into this
You said
beautiful world of
that, just a
of
sec, you said that you barely have enough time these days to come into LinkedIn. But the key thing is the kind of impact that one is able to make within that space. And not everyone can afford a consultant
Sure.
and this and that. And so my point is to encourage you to please continue to bring those conversations to bear, and those thoughts
Sure.
also to continue to post, because they help. They always do.
I agree. I agree. That's something I am planning to put more time into. Um, okay, yeah. So I'm just gonna go into I'm trying to make this not as theoretical as you've had it. So it's gonna be a very practical. If we didn't have to do this virtually, I'd literally be jumping in the middle of every one of you right now. But it's really about just thinking together about what branding is and how it can help our businesses, and especially in today's world where people are looking for more meaning to the businesses that they interact with, that they consume their products or they buy their services. People just want to know who you are beyond the products and the services, and that's really why branding is necessary. Aside from that, if people say, why exactly do I need branding, or why do I need a brand? It's simple, right? If you're going to be offering a product, if you're going to be delivering a service, you're not going to be the only person doing it. You're going to have competition, and you're all going to be looking to talk to the same set of people. Mostly everybody's looking at age 18 to 35 nowadays. Those are the most difficult people to convince, right? Because they have a very, very expressive set of how they think, what their mindset is. It,
Network. And our speaker is gone. Okay, guys. We're going to wait for him to return, but in the meantime, I think that we can continue the conversation about the branding. And I think the point that he was making was the sheer level of choice that exists today, and the fact that we all have a voice today on social media, which we didn't have previously. And then, of course, critical two things that have impacted our lives: more choices and less time. So we have less time, we're less patient, and exactly when that happens, for customers, for consumers, the potential is just ignore the things that you post, or ignore the conversations, or any other thing that is going on. Thankfully, Olaji is back, so he can take over again.
So I think I got kicked off for a minute. I'm one of those people that don't like to blame the network, so I'm going to blame myself actually.
Right.
So yeah, literally, I was just saying that like Dodger said, it's really the fact that you have a lot of people competing for the same resources and trying to talk to the same people, and these people are people who are very, very, very keen on who they interact with or who they associate with, or who people even perceive them to be associated with. So that's really why branding is important. Let's go to the next slide. So the idea is, I thought I'll tell you how something that is mostly very common with FMCG, that's with fast moving consumer goods. So the likes of your biscuits, your soap, and your commodities, where they're just a whole lot of brands that are trying to get the attention of the consumers. And I wanted to start from there so you could see how it literally evolved into being related to tech. and seeing how what role it plays with enabling your tech business and the people that you're trying to provide solutions for through tech and through innovation, if I might use the word. So clearly, there was a man called Neil H. McElroy. He used to work with Procter and Gamble, and I'm sure a lot of us know Procter and Gamble in today's world. They're still pretty big in the FMCG space. Um, what he was trying to do was, I mean, I think it was even accidental in some ways, because what he was trying to do was to find out why some products succeeded better than others. And it was just, we're all selling soap. I mean, back then the brands were pretty much packaged the same way, because packaging was done just for purpose of safety and transportation and the logistics and all of that. So he was trying to understand, especially in a situation where from the same company using the same products and the same raw materials to create products, why some brands were succeeding better than others. Why did consumers like some brands than the others? And then he decided to recruit a couple of people to go and study the whole conversation, right? So a lot of people say branding is a lot of strategic work. You do a lot of thinking about the marketing and all of that, but it's really more about the people who you're selling to as well, right? So the consumers and the audience that you're speaking to are really those people that you're creating your product and your service for. So let's put it in the space of tech, right? A lot of us entrepreneurs trying to create a very novel idea that is, going to solve some huge problem in the world today. And we're thinking first about ourselves, right? So I've met a lot of people who want to start companies, and the first place they start is logo and all of that. So I tell people that's really not what your brand is about. So, I mean, your brand is even more about why you were motivated to come up with that solution in the first place. And that's the whole essence of this conversation. It's what's the purpose behind your brand? And when you have a purpose, most of the successful brands in the world today are brands that are rooted in the purpose that their consumers could relate with. Um, Almost every Tom, Dick, and Harry wants to start a business and name it after themselves instead of thinking about the people that they are creating the solutions for. So we need to think about the mindsets in a totally different way. Think about, first of all, who are these people that we're trying to create these services for? What exactly are their pain points? How can we solve their problems? What are they going through? In the world today, a lot of people clearly, as Dodger said in the beginning introduction, the economy is taking a downturn. I tell a lot of people Nigeria hasn't even begun to see the worst implications of COVID, because we still have a bit of a delayed effect. To be pessimistic, but it's really just what it is. From the exchange rates and the volatilities that we see happening in the markets, we just have, I mean, we're still trying to get past the health side of it, but in terms of what it does to our economy, that's something that hopefully, such conversations that we're having here would create ideas that would spur our economy and help us get out of any negative downturn that we see coming through. So clearly, going back to how he founded this whole idea of branding, it was really to study the culture of the people that they were selling products and services to, get to know more about their markets and get to know more about their culture, and see what exactly the soft spots were with the products. Let's go to the next slide. So pretty much see what the soft spots are with the product, see where the strengths are. Everybody will tell you, study what the weaknesses are, study what your strengths are, do a SWOT analysis and all of that. It's pretty much the same thing in the world today. If you're delivering a service, if you're creating a product, you want to understand, what exactly are the advantages that you already have and what disadvantages do you have? How do you use your advantages to guide against disadvantages? And that's where you begin to be more competitive and more strategic with your brand. And that's where you start to play in markets where, you're thinking not just for Nigerians, but you're thinking, how can I make this brand a global idea that everybody's going to buy into? And that's really what innovation is all about. We try to create experiences that people would come into contact with and would not be able to forget, because somewhere deep inside you touched a truth that they knew was true, was genuine, was authentic, and they just can't miss that. Let's go to the next slide. So the guy was called Neil McElroy. He created this, model for which a lot of people follow today. I tell people that branding has evolved from what it used to be. There was a time it was deemed to be just more successful brands that we have some today. It's really about the experience that the consumers get from the brand. How do they feel? How does the product make them feel? How are they perceived by associating with the product? Who are the people that deliver these products to them? In creating a huge and a wonderful brand experience as well, you're thinking about who the owner of the brand is. Who are the people that work with this brand? How friendly are they? Are they people that you can relate with? Every aspect of your business is branded, if I might use the word. So we don't just think about it as marketing. And in a couple of slides, I'll show you that shift that has happened during the Elroy time to what we have today. Let's go to the next slide. So another thing you want to think of when you're coming up with your business idea, and I'm not really here to tell you about how to think about your business idea. I'm really just here to tell you how to define the purpose for what your idea is and what it stands for. And that's really the foundation for having a great brand anywhere in the world. Once you know what your brand stands for, once you know the problem you're trying to solve, once you can find that human problem that's, motivated or inspired you to begin that business, then you've got most of the answers covered. Every other thing is really about telling a great story to the people that you're marketing to. This is from Henry Ford. He said, if you had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So pretty much I'm telling you, be dogged with your idea, but you also know that what problem am I solving? And it's really about thinking about what the future demand is going to be, not just what you have now, but where you see people trending towards. And that's where I say from brand marketing, you start to think about brand innovation. And I would have a couple more conversations regarding this in future slides. Let's move on. So I really wanted to ask a question here. It's a bit weird just having to speak to myself, but this is a slide I came up with because I try to tell people that brands are not just products, they're not just services, they're not just companies, they're people as well. And then when you look at this slide, you see a couple of faces there that I've added to logos that the Amazon, his owner of Amazon is now the world's richest guy by a huge percentage. Bill Clinton, one of the most remarkable presidents of the United States of America. We all know Fela very well. Fela is, I'm a huge fan of Afrobeat music. And you can see that for each of these people and for each of these products, there's just a particular space in your mind that they occupy. And you cannot just fight it off, right? Because every time you think about them, it's easy for you to quickly associate them with something. And that's the same thing you want to do when you're thinking about your brand. You want to think about, how do I own a particular space in the mind of the people that I am creating this product or service for? And then not just the product or the service, think about the people who are going to be delivering the products and the services, where they're going to be sold, the channels in which they're going to be sold, the journey that those people are going to come into, and how all of that ties back into a holistic experience for your brand. So it's an entire value chain where, from the idea to how the product is created, to the people who are selling the product, to the people who are interacting with the people who are buying the product, everybody needs to understand why they're doing what they're doing. And if you don't have a definition for that, it's always difficult because people can smell inconsistency a mile away. And once people smell inconsistency with your brand or your business, as the case may be, they tend to run away because they can't trust you. So the key word here is trust, right? We're trying to make people trust us. And we're trying to do that by telling an authentic, genuine, innovative story about, we're taking you from point A to point B, walk with us. And if you can't be authentic about such a message, then it's really difficult for you to get the buy-in of people. Let's go to the next one. Um, this is the slide I spoke to you about because we're trying to move people from a point of, I mean, in the past, there was a lot of, I'm sorry, let me just try and move this. Just trying to fix something on my system, sorry.
Is there something we can help with?
No, it's fine. I think I've got it.
Okay.
So yeah, in the past, we had people think about branding and marketing from a place where it was a subset of what your business was about. And that's where they say you have the say approach, which is a communications approach, and you have the say and do approach. So when you're thinking about your business idea or your tech business and all of that, I am sure you sat down in a brainstorming session where everybody's saying, okay, so what's the revenue model? How are we making money? How are we getting customers? And then when you think about branding, you're thinking about branding from that aspect of marketing, because that's the time that you think that you're ready for your brand. But no, that's not how it works. In today's world, branding actually starts the day you develop that business idea. And you start to think about what's the reason that we're coming up with this business in the first instance. It motivates what you even decide to call your business. It motivates the type of people you recruit, because once you know what the purpose for what your brand is, it's something that is 360 degrees, and then it goes cyclic towards the entire sales, your manufacturing, your finance, your human resources. Everybody needs to start to think in a way that, is aligned with what your purpose is. And that's what you see most of the great brands do today. If you were trying to get a job, and let's use the companies that we're mostly used to here in Nigeria, let's say a British American Tobacco, for example, or a Google, for example, or Facebook. And let's even use, those tech companies that have come into, the world that we live in today. You'd notice that in recruiting people, they're recruiting people who can carry the vision further, and not people who are gonna, no matter how skilled you are, they want people who can buy into the same purpose that founded the organization. And that's how, we've shifted away from brand strategies as just a subset of marketing into a space where once you have your business strategy, you envelope that with your brand strategy, and then it filters to every touch point of your business, from finance to even who your security is. I mean, if you say, you're a safe company, especially now that the guy who's the receptionist is built into that brand strategy. And that's why it's very, very important that you understand what your brand is from the beginning, and then it's not something that you do later. When you hear, for example, advertising companies say we're going to help you reposition your brand, I ask people, why do you have to spend a fortune repositioning a brand? You had all the opportunity, especially at startups like, most of us are here today, I guess. You had all the opportunity to do the right things from the beginning and build a journey that worked, very seamlessly from the beginning. So you don't have to wait till, you already feel like most people don't know me well enough, and then you're trying to create awareness, or you get to a point where you tell yourself, oh, people have the wrong perception about the business because this is how I decided I wanted it to be. And I'll give you a brief example of a product in our markets that, when it comes to defining that positioning space that you belong in and you want people to perceive your brand as, it's very important that you get it from the beginning. I wish I could ask the question here, but I'm just going to tell you. So for a lot of us, I guess if I asked you, what energy drinks do you know about in our markets? I don't want to prompt you, but I know that your mind is going to go towards, your Powerhouse or your Red Bull and the likes, right? But here's the thing, right? We had an energy drink category in the Nigerian market way before the Powerhouse and the Red Bull came into the market. The owners of that brand just did not get it right from the beginning, and it was too late when they did, because now they had to play catch up. So here's another thing here. Once you have, some competition who's coming to the market and owns that defining word in the mind of the audience, it's too late, because you're just going to be seen as playing catch up, and you're never really going to be able to command the same premium for that positioning in the consumer's mind. So before we had Powerhouse and before we had the likes of our Red Bull in the Nigerian markets, we actually had an energy drink called Lucozade. And Lucozade was in the Nigerian market as an energy drink, but was never called an energy drink. So in a lot of places, it was doing exactly the same thing that your Powerhouse and your Red Bull did, but it was branded differently. So if you don't tell consumers who you are and what you stand for, you have to be ready to accept whatever they decide that you stand for. So if you don't tell your own story, they'll tell it for you. That's what it is. And, so most times you found out that Lucozade was relegated to hospital rooms, and people thought it was only for the sick, and more or less. And the reason why it was in hospital rooms was because it was giving energy to people who were a bit worn out. But in terms of an active sporty drink that you could carry every day, it just wasn't that. And just because, consumers have started to buy you for a particular reason and you think, oh, I'm making enough money, it never really is. I mean, if that wasn't why your brand was created, you really should correct it at that point in time, because once you feel you're making the short-term gains, and then, the real guys came into the market and said, oh, we're a Powerhouse energy drink. And then they fitted it to the lifestyle of the young guys. So it's in your pubs, it's in your bars, it's in your clubs, and it's selling on a daily basis as against when people are just sick. And then Lucozade now tried to go and re-strategize and say, oh, we've been in this market since we had the products, we just weren't telling the right story. And then, they came out with the PET bottles and tried to compete. It was already too late because the consumers had moved on. And that's why, from the beginning of where you get your business strategy, it's always important that you define what your brand stands for, and it filters through every aspect of the consumer touch points, or every aspect that your brand takes to the marketplace. So let's go to the next slide. So in a nutshell, right, it's key things to look out for when you're defining your brand. You want to be sure that there's clarity about what it stands for. You want to be sure that, there's a commitment from yourself. You want to be sure that it is properly protected in terms of, what copyrights and the rest you might have associated with it. You want to be sure that it's also responsive. So as the market is moving, you want to be sure that you're also moving with the pulse of the market. You want to be sure that it's authentic. You want to be sure that it is relevant to the lifestyle. You want to be sure that, there's a presence and visibility. You want to be sure that people understand exactly what your brand stands for. A lot of people are very highfalutin when it comes to branding. I try to break it down to the simple language, or use examples that you just might be familiar with. And in most cases, consumers are always guessing, what exactly is it that you do? I mean, if you say, I'm a tech-enabled this, was that not existing before? What new value are you bringing to the market? And why should I choose you over the other people doing the same thing? Most times ideas are not new in themselves. It's really in the way that they are delivered that make them new. And one of the best ways, and that's why I've titled this presentation, Creating a Sustainable and Innovative Brand Experience. One of the best ways to make your brand look great is by giving people a wonderful experience. Once they feel that experience, they know that there is no way, your brand isn't clear about what it's trying to achieve in the marketplace. And that really just helps. Let's move to the next slide. So these are really just factors that you want to consider when you're building that brand. Like I said, it's something that has to be done in the beginning. It's not something that has to come as an afterthought. And this slide here helps to put, some sort of a snapshot to everything. So what's the vision of your brand from the brand owner's perspective? This is something that I tell people, you want to have this in pretty much the same way you go to a company's website and you have, these are corporate values and all of those. But in this case, you want to be sure that you have everything in one single screenshot or in one snapshot so that everybody who's coming into the organization knows this at the back of their mind, and it really just helps in the delivery of what that brand experience is. So you want to know what your vision is. What exactly are you trying to achieve? It has to be measurable. A lot of people say, I want to be this in Africa by so and so. Yeah, it's great as long as you're able to measure your progress towards such a vision. In terms of the values, and this is where I have a lot of problems with some brands and some organizations, right? In terms of the values, a lot of people, I don't know, when people say, and I don't like using the word corporate values, I really just say what our values are. And when people say values, I mean, you've probably worked in some organizations where, you know, there's some tests sometimes to say, hey, maybe your MD jumps at you someday and says, what are our values? And then you start thinking of some acronym that had been created just to come up with those values. It's not real, it's not authentic, right? Because if someone said, are you a liar? Do you steal? Do you do this? I mean, you could clearly say no because they're not part of your values. So when you're thinking of a brand and organizational values as well, it should be clearly as simple as that. 3-4 words of what you are. We're die-hard people, for example. We're resilient. We never say never. And if your people start to think of your values that way, and you see that with most, especially in tech, you'd see that with most tech companies, those are the sort of values that they inculcate, they try to teach their people, so that it doesn't have to be something that is, for lack of a better word, it's here and there, right? So it's something that everybody knows. This is why we come to work every day. We're trying to make people interact more with each other. We're trying to make phone calls cheaper for people. Things that are just as simple as that. And then the values that will help you deliver such a vision. And we talk about what your positioning is. We had used the Lucozade example, for example, and what your personality. Your personality is pretty simple as a brand. You can either be a very serious brand, especially if you're in financial services, professional services, or you could be a brand that is really just out there to change the status quo. Why do things have to be this way? And then you keep questioning those things, because that's something that also helps you to move your business forward. I mean, if the thinking behind how you started your business was, we saw a situation that we thought was terrible and we just needed to change it, then in terms of personality, it's going to be one that thinks about exploring adventures, things that would never say, why take this answer as the answer? And those are things that you build into your personality. So you can be fun, you can be rebellious, you can be rigid if you want to be rigid. You can be a brand that is compassionate. And you see a lot of those things when we look at, the spectrum of brands, the spectrum of brands that we have. Some brands are really just there to be, emancipate and different things. So you have to find that personality for yourself as well. What's your proposition? What are you telling people they are changing? What's the most inspiring and compelling thing that you can convey about your brand to the audience? Who exactly is your target audience? And a lot of people miss this. It's not enough to say 18 to 35, 18 to 50, young, upwardly mobile, and those are the words that people use nowadays. Who exactly are they? Where do they stay? What do they do? What do they like? Are they satisfied with their life? Are they at this point the people who are trying to run to Canada? Those are the sort of deep insights that you would know about the mindset of the people that you're trying to create the solutions for. And if you know that, it's easy for you to be able to speak to them in a language that they understand. Because at that point, you know that, these are people that are not sure if they should sit back in Nigeria, for lack of a better dream or vision. These are people that, they're very conscious about how their peers perceive them. So they're, while this guy's salary is going from 350 to 400,000, they're also thinking, do I need to switch jobs at this point? Do I need to start to invest in land or agric? Are these people that are tired of 9 to 5? They want a free life where they're able to express. And if you're able to coin all of that into a snapshot, then when you get to work every day, you understand why you're in the office, you understand who you're telling your stories to, and it makes it easy for you. Let's move to the next one. So it's really defining your brand in explicit terms. This literally just tells you what sort of model, like we had said earlier, you move away from thinking of brand experience as just a subset of marketing into something that envelopes your brand experience strategy. And in thinking about that, you're thinking about your environment, you're thinking about your communication, you're thinking about your personality, and you're thinking about your proposition, and everything just comes together, right? So it's not just advertising, it's not just marketing, it's what your office looks like, it's what you guys wear to work, it's how you speak, it's sort of language that shows up on your websites, it's, you know, everything that I literally can feel or touch or taste or smell or hear when I think about your brand sort of contributes to how I perceive that brand. And let's even just think about, let's go to the next slide. Let's think about, you know, some of those examples that we've seen happen in this market, right? I like to think about, let's say the banking industry, for example. I mean, when people ask me what's your best Nigerian brand, I'm always very, it's always very difficult for me to answer that question, because for a long while, a lot of what we've been seeing in Nigeria has just been advertising. The one true brand that I know came into the market and tried to completely build an experience was GT Bank. And I'd say when they started, it was something that was undeniable, right? So from, and let's just think about banking the way it used to be. I mean, a lot of us till today, I try not to go to the banks, but we can tell that when GT came into the market, they were very, very specific, very specific about who they wanted to target. Went after these young folks, telling them, you know, you can start your account with 0 naira. Typically, it's 0 naira. You don't have to have any money. You could start your account with 0 naira. You don't have to have a savings booklet or withdrawal booklets. You can use, you know, and this is where technology is important, right? Because it's also a question of how you leverage technology to define your purpose and define your experience. So I'm not saying the banks that were there before them did not think of such ideas, but you know that it coincided with when, you know, the whole GSM thing came into the country, and there were telcos with all sorts of products. So you could get your account balance. I mean, before, people used to go to the bank to check account balance. Think about how ridiculous it sounds today, that you had to go to the bank and write on a piece of paper and give it to another person and say, please help me check. And today, from every transaction, you literally know what your account balance is. And just because they were the ones who, you know, say first to market with such ideas, it just basically made people think, this is a bank I can bank with. Think about the things we've spoken about environment. Think about banks even till today, right? If you want to know if it's a UBA bank, an Oceanic bank, you want to know if it's an FCMB bank, just look at the building. You can literally tell that, you know, from knowing from this building, when I see these pillars, this is the sort of bank it is. Banks used to think in uniformity, right? GT came and said, look, first of all, we're not going to use blue, green, and any of those colors, right? We're going to be orange, and that's a color that people don't even associate with banking. We're going to start to think of changing our buildings so that they all don't look the same. So today, the one on this street is going to be a different color. The one on the next street is going to be a different color. And at the end of the day, it is the excitement that it brings. When you step in there, the first thing you get into, when you get into a bank, you're usually confused, right? Like, where do I go to find this service or not? That's why they have the white guy at the beginning for you, the guy who's dressed in white, for you to ask any questions that you have, and then he just directs you. So they had thought about the journey that you would be going through, and they knew that, you know, for every step of this journey, you needed someone who was going to guide you to understand it. Even with the music, right? So when you step into the booth for a GT bank, you start to hear the Asha song serenade you into the bank. It tells you that someone somewhere was thinking about every aspect of your experience to how you're going to experience and believe in their brand. So, like I say, it's a journey, and it's one that needs to start at the beginning, and it's one that needs to filter through. So I'll give you a good example. It's when people started to have issues with GT was when it became too full inside the bank. And that's because they literally went after retail, and they wanted to get, you know, the every Tom, Dick, and Harry on the street to open an account with them. And it was their strength, because even the strong corporate banks at some point now had to start going into that retail, because the source of funds are cheap, and it just makes you have a better stay in the economy. It's the difference between being a head brand and a heart brand. So if you're a head brand, it's really, I understand what you do. You provide banking services. If it's a heart brand, it's a brand that you're able to say, I really like this brand. I like the way they make me feel. I'm going to recommend them to my friend, recommend them to my brother, recommend them to my sister. And that's where you start to play with emotions and telling your brand story. I'd want us to go through some of the different other things that, you should consider when building your brand. So associations, for example, let's go to the slide that has the Walmarts and this is just because it's a tech meets branding presentation. So for each brand that you're thinking of, you want to be able to say, when people think of my brand, what exactly comes to mind first off? Is it inexpensive? Is it affordable? Is it accessible? Is it overnight deliveries? So when you think of FedEx, for example, you're thinking overnight deliveries. When you think of Google, I mean, it became so bad that if you had any question, even if it was a question to God that you serve, people say Google it, right? So, and this is something that we take for granted, but we don't know how deeply immersed these brands have been able to build, such stories and problems. If even at work, yeah, someone gives you a challenge and you have no idea how to start, the first place you're going to is Google. When you're at the office and you're opening your laptop, it's no wonder that the first browser that you go to is www.google.com, even if you know you don't need anything from them. So these are the kind of things that you need to start thinking of when you're thinking. And if you don't use these examples, I mean, when you're thinking of branding, you want to be cultural, you want to be local in your approach because those are the people that you're creating your brand for. And then you want to scale it up from local to global. But at the same time, you want to be able to benchmark your brand with global brands and be sure that when it comes to that sort of competition, you're not lacking in any way because you've thought of your story clearly. And this is why it's even stronger when you have a local story, because a lot of people want to understand the origin of your brand. What does this brand even mean? If it's a Kia, for example, they want to know what it means. And in asking those questions, you have an opportunity to tell the audience your story for which your brand was founded, and they literally buy into it, because a story that you did not know before doesn't seem so common, has a history, has a culture. It is just richer. And it's always best that you use such cultural applications when designing the experience and when defining your brand. Let's move to the next slide. I have a couple of tech examples, and this is also an example of how GT has. Let's move to the GT slide and just tell you some of the other things that they've done to express what they do. I mean, you would think that it's just banking. Let's move to the GT slide, please. You think that it's just a bank. Why is the next slide after this? Why is a bank, going into food and drinks and going into fashion and all of those things, right? You have to think about it from an innovative experience point of view. When they started in Danny and started to build content online, when they started the market hub where everybody was coming together to buy and sell, clearly everybody should have known. And what is the great thing about this, where you have come up with a great idea, is when everybody's copying exactly what you're doing. And it's really not because, I don't know. It could be something that anybody could have sat down in their banks and thought about. And I'm sorry I'm using banking so much, but it's really because, and I'm not going to lie to you, there are not so many Nigerian brands that have really passed the hallmark for me. I can be very difficult with how I assess brands, but I'll tell you that, if you're going to be a great brand, it's really not just about marketing and adverts and all of that. The entire experience has to be intact, has to be holistic, has to be wholesome. And if it isn't, then I don't know. I think a lot of Nigerian brands are still trying to figure out their way in that journey, and some of them are doing some great stuff. I have some tech examples after this, but what I was trying to bring out here was, when you know the lifestyle of the audience that you're trying to catch, or the audience that you're trying to relate with, then you build separate other extensions that you can use to engage them. And it's easy for them to just gravitate towards you because they understand that you are thinking for them. You know where they're headed towards, if it's fashion, if it's food, if it's drinks, if it's entrepreneurship, if it's how to get visibility for my business, which is what the Market Hub does, bringing people together to just interact. That is what a bank should be, not just a place where you open a savings and current account. And the minute a bank can get to that position, they've captured you. And that's why they're doing really great. Care's not taking their number one and number two over the past couple of years. Let's look at some tech examples and some of the things they've been doing as well, right? So we have a lot of brands who literally just say, And this is where there's some difficulty, right? And I was hoping that we could talk about this once the presentation is over. What innovation is and what an innovative brand experience is isn't just leveraging technology to make a business. It is leveraging technology to solve a problem and solving that problem in a way that is compelling and has a true purpose that people can buy into. So I'm going to say that again. It's not enough to just leverage technology to solve a problem. That is really simple, right? I mean, ideas in themselves are an evolution of technology, right? Ideas use technology to become better. And let's think about the likes of Facebook, for example. When Facebook started, what exactly is Facebook? Facebook is the place where you go, you add your friends, you say a few things about yourself, and then you share stories and you add friends and all of that. Think about the basic idea behind Facebook. A place where you create a profile for yourself, you add friends, you add family, you share stories, you say your best rapper, you say, the best food that you like. Think about Facebook and think about something as basic as a slum book while you were back in primary school or secondary school, for example. I'm not sure you remember those fancy books and felt pens that mostly girls used to create. And then they ask you, write your name, write your best musician, write your date of birth, maybe put your picture, write who you admire and all of those things. That is the idea that Facebook has taken and you leverage technology to build into what it is today. And that's where it started from. Giving information about yourself and having other people, so you go and you read other people's pages on the book. It's the same thing that you're doing when you go on Facebook, on the internet. It's just that, one has used technology to make that experience better and try to tell you that, when they started creating things like and all of that, you now realize that, they had thought about the branding from all of those channels, and they had decided to create things that would be specific to them with regards to how you interact with them. And it gives you that user experience journey that we've been talking about. When you think about what it means to you, at the end of the day, I mean, it's sort of going out of style, I think, with the new generation and everything, but it's still one of the most remarkable social media platforms that we have in our day and age. And the great thing is you don't just stop there, and that's why it's great to be dynamic, it's great to be responsive, it's great to move with the tides. Once you see that, it looks like pictures are becoming really still, people are looking more for what videos are going to be, then you start to think, who's the next guy I can attach, what new features can I add to my platform? And that's how you get better at what you do. And don't think about, I'm just thinking of how to solve postal problems by moving with the bike from here to there. Think about, how am I solving the issues for a particular set of people? It could be housewives, it could be anything, right? But your idea just needs to be more definitive, more expressive, it has to have a soul, and it has to have a soul that doesn't just seem like some manual process. It has to be something that people say, I really love what these guys are doing, right? I really can see myself in their story. I mean, it's a story for every entrepreneur as regards how they want to build that world-changing idea. But the question is always going to be, when it comes to your brand experience, what's the purpose? Because once you don't have that purpose, then everybody just thinks of you as another business. Let's go to the next slide. So the next slide really has a couple of tech brands that I have picked up because I think that, in terms of commending what they're doing, I think they've begun to tell a story for themselves as well. And then when it comes to banking, you have the likes of the Kuda Bank. And when it comes to, they're really just some brands who are leveraging technology to, next slide, please. They're really just some brands who are leveraging technology to not just solve problems, but also tell a story that is different from what already exists. And that is where you want to be as a brand owner or as an entrepreneur. You have the likes of Paystack, who are trying to make payments seamless. So for every transaction that you're making across various merchants, when you see that Paystack, you just have this, this is going to be very, very seamless, it's going to be free, it's not going to give me trouble. When you think about what Kicks is doing with regards to the lifestyle, we have a very conscious um, lifestyle story going on with us right now. You can see that from the people who carry smoothies everywhere. So even eating healthy, the salads, the smoothies, the parfaits and all of that. Those are things that, say 7, 8, 10 years ago, nobody was doing any of those things, right? So right now it just shows you that, everybody's conscious about their health, everybody's trying to look trim, everybody wants a flat belly, everybody wants six packs, everybody wants abs. So if you're going to be building a product and you're thinking Kicks, why not just think about that lifestyle thing and think about, what extra can I do to make the people that, are trying to customize. I mean, customizing your design on your sneakers, those are things that Nike and the likes have done. But when you start to make it more, I mean, first of all, Kicks has a local story going global. And then when you start to build in those sort of features that use technology to make the lives of people easier with regards to the things that they are passionate about, then you are building a house in the mind and the heart of your audience. And I really like what Kicks is doing with that. You have the likes of Kia Kia Print just telling you that, look, we can make your prints as easy as ABC, and all of this can happen online. You have the likes of Kuda Bank who are telling you that banking doesn't have to be so stressful. So one of the key things that banking as a category has, first of all, aside from the trust, is the fact that people just think that you guys are stressing me, stealing my money. Why do I always have to pay for these SMS charges? Why do I always have to pay for, maintenance card fee and all of those things, right? So with what Kuda Bank is doing, and I hope they don't get to the point where they start to introduce all of those things, right? Because I think some of those things are even regulatory, but it clearly just tells you that, we're the bank for the free. And that already sends you a message, right? Because it tells you we've chosen our audience. We don't want people who think that banking should be burdensome. And people who want to bank free. You want to be able to express yourself while you're banking. You want to be able to enjoy banking because it should be enjoyed. It's an active service. So banking for the free, Kuda Bank, free ATM card deliveries and all of that. Great stuff. Jumia Food. I knew Jumia Food when it was Hello Food. I mean, there's a guy called Joe Falter when he first came. I think he had just finished from some business school. I think it was Imperial, I'm not sure. And then, they had literally just been studying markets and saying, what are those emerging markets that we know, in terms of interest rates, in terms of consumer power? And that's where, the whole BRICS idea and everything came from or started from. And most of those very, very intelligent chaps came into Nigeria and just thought of what new ideas can we bring about to food delivery, for example. And that's where Hello Food started till it became Jumia Food. And Jumia Food, you can now see the extensions. I mean, even though there's still a lot of some legacy issues with Jumia as itself, but when it comes to e-commerce, when you think about it, they literally are still the only ones doing great in this market. So extending to things like Jumia Party and all of that, you can sit there in comfort of your house and get drinks delivered, get whatever it is that you need for a party delivered to your house. Same thing with Printivo, whatever it is, business cards and all of those things, especially for the likes of the new generation where you have almost everybody trying to start their own business. Almost everybody has an Instagram page with a business idea trying to make it happen in this world. When we think about, are they doing it great? I hope. A lot of people, I like the idea of just start, whatever it is, just start and get it out there, because you never know, someone else might be thinking of that same business idea right now as we speak. But at the same time, you want to start and you want to start great. So start great. Make sure your brand is not more about yourself than about your audience, right? Think about the people that you're creating these brands for. And this is really just bringing it home as regards to what it is that we're trying to build when it comes to innovative and sustainable brand experiences and how they can align with leveraging technology to solve a need and build a sustainable brand and business. I am not sure if that is the end of my presentation. Can we go to the next slide? But literally, I mean, I think I've been able to, I'm trying to also keep the time, but I think I've been able to just share some examples with you with regards to the thinking behind how to use brand experiences to tell your story better and to build a better business and build a sustainable business. And that's really what it is. That's what we're trying to do here. If we can get those aspects right, I can tell you for a fact, right? No matter what it is, as long as you have your branding done properly, you have your brand ideals right, your values, the way your users experience, your business. Once you have all of those things well sorted and well crafted, it's a bit intellectual, right? Because first of all, we don't have a lot of consulting companies in Nigeria that actually focus on this. Most of the branding companies I know just want to help you advertise. Advertising is really not. How many of us even remember GT advertising when they started? It was first of all about the experience, and then when you have the experience, you can market that experience, right? You first of all build a wonderful experience, and people don't really know this, right? Advertising is bad when you have a bad product. So think about spending money to tell more people that your product is bad. It's like detonating a bomb in your living room or in your office, right? So if you haven't gotten it right from the beginning, leave advertising alone. You would start advertising out when you get to the advertising part. But focus on the experience that the consumers have. How do they, how long does it take for products to get delivered? How do they feel when they're delivered? Do you have key data about the audience that you're speaking to? Do you know their birthdays? The more of this information that you have, the more you are able to create that change that you desire, and the more you're able to create a following I'm sure you've heard of people who riot for brands, right? So there was a time they wanted to change something as simple as the shape of the Coca-Cola bottle, and people took to the streets because they felt like it was a part of their lives that you were changing. And I think that, that's where we need to get to as businesses, young entrepreneurs, techpreneurs in Nigeria as well. If we're able to get that thinking right, it's really simple. It's really just the thinking. And I try to make it as simple as that. Once we get the thinking right, and I'm probably going to share a link after this of where, and I know a lot of people say a lot of things about Apple and all the likes of those brands. The truth is they did some great work while they were building their brands, and you always have to learn from them. The one thing that you should know not to take from them is you should always be able to tell a uniquely indigenous story to your own business and to your own brand. So your brand is always about the cultural applications of the place, the context, the local culture. You need to be able to fit in your story into that first, and then scale it as it goes forward. Don't try and be all talking to the aspects of the brand that are not cultural, because that's not going to help you. The culture is where your strengths lie, and it's where you have the opportunity to express yourself in a way that anybody is willing to listen. Once you get that right, the sky is just where we're going to start from. So I think at that point, it's about 6 o'clock here. I think at that point I'm going to try and bring this into some form of a wrap so that we can have more interactive conversations regarding some of your questions and what you'd like for me to provide more insights on. I'd really want us to be more interactive in this conversation. So thank you very much. That's where I'm going to wrap up the presentation. Hopefully we can move into the Q&A from here.
Hello, thank you very much. We appreciate. My name is Dimola. Thank you very much. Well said. We believe a lot of persons have questions. Okay, so we have a question from Mohammed who says, I started my Facebook page and ads before the actual business. That got me a lot of customers before I could provide my services to them. Was that a good idea?
So, I mean, starting your Facebook page before you started your business, what was the Facebook page? What was if you were having conversations regarding what your business is trying to solve, then maybe it was a great way to also even start to garner the right sort of audience for which your business would cater for. But, I hope it was strategic and it wasn't just something that you did by accident, because that way, I'm not sure what the value would have been for your business, because ideally you want to be able to it's great to have conversations, but I really just hope it was strategic. If it was strategic, then it wasn't a bad idea. It was actually a better way to I don't know about advertising. So what were you advertising if your business hadn't started? Um, but if it was really just a community of people discussing about, what your ecosystem was like, then I think that's a great idea. I tend to think of advertising as something that oversells in the beginning. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that worked, but for the other purpose, great.
Okay, thank you very much. We also have someone, Alima, who says, can you get your brand story right from the beginning of the business? At what stage should one change or re-strategize a business story?
So I mean, your brand story is really just it's best. It's I mean, you have your brand story from the minute you decided on what your business idea is, right? What your brand story really is, and don't let anybody tell you, some. As marketers, we like to use a lot of very, very highfalutin words and all of that, but a brand story is really just a story. What inspired you to start your business, and what are you trying to change? That's what your story is, and you can find creative ways of telling that story. It could be a poem, it could be a song, it could be anything, but that's really in the core what your story is. It's usually started at the time that you think of the business idea. At what stage you should change your brand story? I'm not sure your brand story ever changes. Your brand story resonates from the beginning of your business till whenever it is going to terminate. Hopefully not. But what changes is the way the story is told. So you can tell a story through letter writing, for example. You can tell a story with over the internet. You can tell a story with a short video. What changes is most likely the narrative, and the narrative really just from a place where the language that you're trying to use, because of the people that you're speaking to, you want to use something that they understand. So if you were a brand that was talking to people who are getting into their 40s and 50s, you know that when you're speaking to younger people, those languages change. So what really changes is just you're just really adapting to different lifestyles, but the story has to be true. Coke's story is the same from when it started till today. They're all about happiness. So you have to find your own story and you have to stay true to it.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to communicate to everyone that is connected with us, if you have a question, you can actually ask the questions by putting up your hands, and we would unmute you when we want to give you the chance to speak. But I will move on to ask some other questions that we've seen come in. And we have an Emeka Kalu that says, if advertising is not needed from the onset, when can it be introduced? And which form of advertising is preferable for a developing brand?
The good thing about brands and the experiences is that every brand is unique to itself, right? So I would not, I wouldn't say advertising isn't needed from the onset. So advertising helps to create awareness for your brand. So you're trying to reach a number of people, and what really advertising is you're trying to speak to many people at the same time. This is the good thing about branding, right? Branding tries to speak to one person at a time. Which is why a brand experience is the best way to advertise your brand, because each person has an individual experience with your brand. And when they have that experience, it affects them in ways that, it might not be the same for everybody. The sort of experience that you have with the brand might be the one that, brought a family together, for example. So each person has a different experience with their brand, which is why I say once you get your brand experience right, then advertising that experience is always easy. For a developing brand, the best forms of advertising, I'll think of you as, I don't want to imagine everybody here as an entrepreneur, but if you're an entrepreneur, you clearly don't have money to do I mean, I don't want to assume, but let's say print adverts, for example. You want to put an advert in a newspaper. That's about 600,000 naira, 700,000 naira. I think those costs are even going up today. Think about it in a way that 700,000 naira is gone the minute that person turns that page over, right? Or the person just switch that page to the next page. Um, Same thing with TV adverts, extremely expensive. But what you would realize is there are different, and that's why it's always good to know who your audience is. When you know your audience, you know where they are. And the truth is, where are we right now? We're online. Um, Maybe last year thereabouts I'd have been having this presentation face to face and fist bumping everybody and just having a really nice time. I think that is for entrepreneurs today, especially if your business is, if your audience is on their phone, when they're on bikes, when they're in the bathroom, everybody carries their phone everywhere, and you want to be able to get into that mind, that space where they are, and not just in terms of the platform, but also in terms of the activities that they're having on those phones. So what exactly are they doing on the phones, and how can you get your message somewhere in between all of that? That's what's important at this point. So great to advertise, but get your experience right first before you advertise. It's always better to have a great experience and then advertise that experience, because then you're selling a good story. If you're selling a bad story, you're only making more people angry about you.
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay, so sorry, Dodger is not on the call right now. She's encountering some technical issues. I'm very sure she'll be coming on board shortly. So that's why I'm standing in for her.
That's fine. That's fine.
We have Saramatu Miller, who has
Hi,
had
Saramatsu.
his or her hand up. So I believe we could just give that person the platform to ask. Go ahead and ask.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, Saramatsu. We can hear you.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
My question is I'm about building a brand, and I really need to use, from all you said, one needs to use the design thinking in being able to
Right.
tell your brand experience, right?
Sure.
So now what I'm asking is it possible to consult with you now professionally so that you give guidance or be a coach or something like that in building the brand? Because honestly, I really need to get my brand experience straight. And that's what I'm trying to do. And it's giving me a bit of a problem. I'm into the health space.
Right.
Trying to work on using natural solutions, nature to heal yourself.
Right.
So I really need to get my brand experience right. And that's why I'm asking.
Okay, Sarah. I think, since that isn't a question, maybe that's something we can catch up on after ideally, the thing is, I told myself, I'm usually open to just talking to a lot of people. I'm usually just talking to, I'm really just open to talking to a lot of people about their businesses. It's what I do, so I'm sure we can catch up on that. It's not an issue.
Okay, so someone has a very straight question saying, is there a perfect brand? Or another person, that's from Bisola, and we have from Ruby also saying, is it ever too late to begin branding? Two questions.
Is there a perfect brand? No. You It's a relationship. Think about branding as a relationship. You're literally having a human relationship with people, and just like every relationship, you would learn about the people. They would learn about you. Sometimes you will make mistakes. You will learn from those mistakes, and the relationship will get better. So that's what a brand experience is, and that's what branding is as well. So, you would get to that point where your brand has developed so much equity and so much trust, that you would literally not have to spend so much to gain the sort of premium that you command for your product, but you'd always be evolving, especially because branding is dynamic. It's always changing. You would always have to put in that effort to change. So in terms of perfection, I don't know. I doubt there's such a thing as a perfect brand. Sorry, what was the second question again?
Okay, the second question was, is it ever too late to begin branding?
It's never too late. Once your business idea is born, what happens is you already have started branding and started gathering customers, and those customers already have perceptions about your brand. And what you're trying to do in the journey of your brand is you're trying to tell a great story at every point in time. It's never too late. What I'll tell you is it's cheaper, way more affordable to start from the beginning than start later, because what happens later is you now have to figure out where you are, and that's when you start to assess what your brand strengths are. you know you undertake a brand audit to be sure that I even have the right story in the first instance. I don't have to rejig anything. It's always harder to retell a story than to tell it from the beginning. But it's never too late, because what you realize is the minute you can tell an emotional story, build an emotional relationship, build a sustainable and memorable experience with the people that you service and you create products for, you'd realize that it literally tells in your business value. And that means more profits, it means sustainability, it means, people are asking you to basically do more stuff for them.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we would we're moving closer to the end of the session. We would take the very last person that has a question. I believe I saw a hand up, and that's from Ola. That's from Olanike. So we would unmute you now so you can ask your question. And I believe that will be the last question we'll take as of this time, because we need to move into taking our poll exercise. That's also going to help us as a business in understanding that there's customer satisfaction from this exercise. So please go ahead, Olanike, to ask your question.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My question, can you hear me?
Hi, Alanika, we can hear
Hello?
you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my question is regards to my business. Okay, so I'm an entrepreneur. Okay, so I have two businesses. I have a clothing line and I also have a lifestyle which has to do with healthy living, so smoothies and healthy, everything organic. Now, my where I'm having a little bit of glitch is that for my clothing business, I haven't done full time. I've been doing it for a while, but I haven't done it full time, and I want to do it full time now, and at the same time, the other business. So the thing is, how do I? Because I feel like I can tell a story that merges both health and and clothing. You know, if you're healthy, if you eat well, if you do well, then your clothes will fit and whatever. But I've not been able to get that measure that I really want. So my thing is, make how do I create a blend that would be identifiable to the brands?
So, I mean, what you're asking basically um, sounds like consulting, but pretty much what you're trying to do is find out what two things your business lines have in common. So it really
Yes.
depends, right? I hear organic,
Yes.
Organic and natural are two things that occur in fashion as well as they occur in healthy living and food and all of that. Um, so it depends on the story you're telling. You don't have to force it if it doesn't blend. If your
Okay.
fashion business doesn't have the same personality, story, characteristics as your healthy food business, don't force it. Find another story for your. The great thing about branding is each brand can survive its own, right? They don't have to be linked together. You're thinking about them as linked together because you're thinking more about the fact that you're the originator of the business. If you're thinking about the audience for which you're trying to satisfy, then you realize that your answers will be in your understanding of that audience, because when you know why you're creating any of those businesses for those people, you will know what story each of those businesses want to tell. um, think about them independently. If they have an underlying factor, if they have something that brings them together, all well and good. If you feel that at the core of the business, sustainability, organic, and all of that is common to both of them, then there's a story in there to be tapped. If not, let them live lives of their own.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. For many of you listening, you would see a poll that it's directly on your screen so we can evaluate how the session has gone. I can see that many of you have already started filling that in. Thank you very much, Mobolaji. We appreciate the learnings, and from the polls, we can actually see that a lot would agree that this webinar was very impactful and met most of their expectations. We really appreciate your input and value that you've been able to share with us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Um, Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for taking the time out to attend this webinar. It's been a wonderful pleasure having to share some of these experiences with you and these insights as well. Um, my name is Balaji Kaxamatas. You can find me on LinkedIn. I think that I have maxed out my connections on LinkedIn, so I think I've reached the maximum of 30,000. But you can always just pop me a message, and I will be willing to answer your questions. I know it's always difficult to start businesses from the scratch, but I can tell you what, right? Once you have your ideas straight and you have able to tell a great story, the sky is your limit. So I would say, please feel free to reach out to Eco Innovation. Feel free to reach out to me, and hopefully we can do more magic together.
Fantastic. So to everyone, the recording of this particular session, this webinar, is going to be available on our website. You can, if you check the chat platform, you'll be able to see the link that can take you directly to our website. That is ecoicenter.com//webinar. And also on Thursdays, we have our Tech Biz series that is going to be happening. So every Thursday, you can always tune in so you can be part of this platform. And more so, we are very pleased and glad to always add value wherever we can. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mobolaji, once again. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Good
Have a
night.
good evening.